No, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no presentations or proclamations or acknowledgements, so we'll go into public comment. Does anyone here care to speak on anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Going once, twice, please.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Carlson, live on Pillsbury Avenue in Elko. I just wanted to start by reading a few quotes from our county and city 2040 plans. The county 2040 plan on page 64 says that in 2040, it wants the following things to be true: that we've managed a plentiful supply and of quality drinking water for all residents, and that we've managed our surface and groundwater systems in the face of rapid growth and intensive farming activity. The city's 2040 plan in the industrial land use goals section on page 51 lists these two goals among others: promote industrial developments which maximize the return of the city's investment in public facilities and services. Secondly, it says encourage industrial site designs which integrate natural land features. 9 pages later in the city's plan, it talks about air and noise pollution. It says the primary source of air pollution within the city of Elko, New Market are projected to be in the areas of County Road 2 and 91 and Interstate 35. Now here's the important part. It goes on to say, recognizing that residential uses currently abut such transportation corridors and will continue to do so in the future, buffer strips, including landscaping, berming, and or fencing, should be established wherever possible to mitigate adverse effects. So in a nutshell, the county and city plans, in their own words, say that they want development that sustainably uses surface and groundwater, maximizes financial return, is designed to integrate natural land features, and respects the residents who will be forced to live next to increased air and water pollution, air and noise pollution. Council members, how do you assess your performance relative to these elements of your plan? Can you look this community in the eyes and say, my votes have and will create a sustainable future, maximize return on investment for the city, not developers, not industrial clients, and you've done whatever possible to mitigate the adverse impacts development will have on those forced to live nearest to it. My question to you now will quickly fade away. It'll be gone today. But we all will have to drive by, look at, live next to, drink, and breathe in what your vote creates every day. Thanks.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, public comment does not include anything that's on the agenda. So is there anybody else that cares to speak on something not on the agenda? Is there anyone online?
I do.
Please come on up.
Pretty sure y'all got your handouts.
Yep.
Like a teacher. I'm Jamie Carlson. November 2022 notification. 214 residents were notified that there could possibly be a Niagara coming near their homes. If Niagara comes in and each resident's wells eventually start to run low, each well owner would have to drop their well. This would be the responsibility of the city of Eanna. We have talked to 3 different attorneys and we have now retained 1 attorney. The cost for 215 wells at $15,000, each totaling $3.2 million for the city of Elko, New Market. This is nothing that Niagara will pick up. Additional homes with wells that are near the city wells, so out by Zweber Farms, out by Veda's house, way out by there, may also need to be dropped. Therefore, would cost several more million for E&M. Please pay attention to this. This is something our attorney suggested strongly, so I put it on a little white piece of paper. My thing is, before you make a prudent decision on these 4 things must be appraised. So as a psychiatric counselor, when a couple comes to me and they're going to make a decision, the first thing I say is, check your morals. Weigh out all the pros and cons, make a pro and con sheet. The right from the wrong for yourself or all others impacted. You must represent fairly all parties involved, all parties under the Jordan Aquifer standards. In making your decision, make it with wise standard, not allowing any power of influences. No power of influence should come over your business, should come over your home, or should come over just your bodily self. Monetary influences, money that's paid under the table, money that's paid right before you, should not be allowed, but only evaluating the facts of how they will affect you and or all others involved in your decision before and after the fact. Values. Make sure your decisions are legal, ethical. Check this out with more than one attorney, and they will not be harmful to yourself and or all others. This including animals, land, wells, or any natural resources involved in the future and to come. Accountability and profitability. If this decision involves money, full transparency will be required in order to make decisions and vote. This including no conflict of interest in all finances, taxes, liability insurance, revenue, expenses, debts, investments, allotments of equity, security, fines, should acquire city services outside of the area, EPA, PD, fire department, ambulance, etc., including all services charged. Legal fees, attorneys, lawyer, if there are damages to people's land, animals, natural resources, crops, trees, roadways, wells, etc. This, of course, would result in lawsuits with fees reversed to all parties involved in the decision. Voting rules at the said place and time. This has been introduced June 8, 2023 to Elko New Market City Council. We have introduced it to Ryan Companies. We have introduced it to F&Z Property, Dakota Electric, Potential Industries, and I should mention Niagara, which we didn't expect them to be here. Of course they're here, there's a vote. So I signed it and dated it for our attorney. This will go to him. There are now 35 families that have retained attorneys. This is getting too serious now. So just to let you know where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. To John and Jamie Carlson, I appreciate you taking the time to put this together, and I appreciate your comments. Now, we do have Niagara in the development on the agenda tonight, so we're not taking any more comments on Niagara. Is there anything non-Niagara? Then please, if it's not Niagara related or development related, happy to hear you.
Call it Niagara related or not. I'm just gonna pose a few questions for you.
Please.
First of all, I live in Farmington. I don't live here in Elko, but I live close enough. And in Farmington, in Dakota County, how many of you like to fish? I like to fish. Anybody here like to fish? Good, you see lots of fisher people here. Okay, so a couple of points here. I live in Farmington, but this aquifer poaching is going to affect me. I love to fish. And the other thing is, I asked the gentleman here, how many gallons per minute is this going to, is going to be drawn? Now, it is Niagara, but here's the question. They told me 250 gallons per minute to start, and then it'll ramp up to 425 gallons per minute at once you're at full, at the full amount. I have an article here. I'm concerned, maybe not necessarily Niagara, but I'm concerned about the health of our trout streams.
Okay.
People come
I'm
to
gonna
Dakota County.
I'm gonna interrupt you at this point.
Trout stream.
No, this is about Niagara. You've mentioned Niagara. You've mentioned
This is talking about the
Understood.
destruction of trout streams. And my last question,
we've had several public hearings on this.
is, how many communities and their local representatives who will also be affected have been notified.
Thank you.
Because I didn't know, my neighbors don't know.
Thank you for your time and for your comment. All right. I'm going to try this one more time before closing public comment. If anything comes up via Niagara or the development, I'm going to cut you off. I didn't want to cut off anyone earlier, but if you have something to speak on Niagara or the development, I will cut you off. Now, with that, please approach the podium.
Hi. So I am an Elko New Market resident.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Ina Stiles,
Thank you.
and I do live in Boulder Point in Elko New Market, the city of Elko New Market. I am a taxpayer, utility ratepayer, water ratepayer. I lived in this area, general area, pretty much my whole life. Fairly new to Elko New Market. I am a registered nurse. I am more of an advocate for people in our state. I talk to many counties, many people across our entire state. I am very politically involved, not Niagara specifically, not even environmental specifically. Healthcare is my issue. My issue here tonight, and from the beginning, even before I knew anyone, any of these great people here, is the lack of the democratic process in this small town. And that is scary and that's disturbing. And as an elder millennial myself, I mean, you guys can't be much older or younger than me, I don't know. It's shocking to me that this would happen. So I'm just asking you to please think of people, think of the facts, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Last call, anyone? Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. Consent agenda, is there anything on consent that anyone would like pulled or has a quick question on?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Josh,
Second.
second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent is passed. We have no public hearings, so we'll get into general business. Before we get into general business, though, just for the council, the way I'd like to do this is each item individually, and then after each item, we take a vote on that item, and then we'll do roll call votes. So obviously, once there's a motion and a second, there'll be an opportunity for discussion. And then when it's your turn to vote, if you want to elaborate on anything, I know we have a big audience, you have that option to do it, so.
May I say something to start off?
Yeah,
If that's okay?
please.
No, I just wanted to take a minute and not rebut anything said, but, and it's, you know, I just wanted to take a moment to thank city staff throughout this entire process for putting up with a lot of stuff and questions and just feedback and everything. And I commend you all for the way that you've handled this situation, been responsive to questions. And, you know, I do care very deeply about this community and about the process. And I think overall this process, while maybe not perfect at times by some of us or all of us, I think I couldn't be more proud of how we've gotten through all of this. Do I know where it's all going to end up or how it's all going to end up? No, we'll have that discussion and everything. But just some of the comments, you know, I would urge the public to really ask the questions. I understand that there's emotion, there's lots of stuff out there, but it's been so hard to bite the tongue and not fight back against some of the misinformation that has been spread constantly over these past 9 months. And I don't think that's helping anybody in this process. It's certainly not helping me make the right decision or a decision. So I just, you know, I did want to take a moment before we get into the meat of some of these discussions to just say thank you to you guys for putting in this effort, for dealing with people like me, you know, specifically. And I appreciate it, so.
Thank you. All right, so the first item is the water use and service ordinance.
Yes. On the business agenda tonight, we do have 5 items, all related to Niagara bottling. The first item, the proposed water use and service ordinance. This is actually kind of exclusive. The city council is being asked to consider an amendment to the city code. Historically, users on the city system have been primarily residential, with a few small businesses that use pretty limited water. The city code currently does not provide for regulation of water users that may have a significant impact to the water supply, treatment, or distribution system of the city. The council has reviewed several drafts of this ordinance, which has been prepared by the city's legal counsel in the past and has provided significant comment, which has been incorporated. The staff is recommending that the city council adopt ordinance number 273 and summary ordinance 274, amending the city code to regulate significant water users.
Thank you. Any questions? And the way I'd like to do this is if this is something that we're interested in, someone make a motion, we'll second it, and then before voting, we'll have a discussion, if there's discussion to be had. So, are there any motions? Council?
Oh, I guess, so I'm confused by your question, or your directions. You want us to make a motion before having the discussion, asking any questions or making comments? I just want to be clear.
That was what I had in mind, but if that's something that the council feels is not the best way, I'm certainly open to it. There's just a lot on this agenda, so I want to keep it somewhat in line. and formal.
Making a motion for action isn't a vote to approve. It simply gets it on the table for, for action.
I'll make a motion for whatever the resolution is, so we can have the discussion.
273 and 274.
273, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 273, 274. Ordinance. 273, 274.
I'll second that. That's a motion by Josh, second by myself. So discussion. Council?
So, this is one of the ones that, this is broadly speaking. So this is not directed towards any applicant or anything on the table. This is our broad ordinance piece. So just laying that out there, making that very extremely clear for my comments related to this. I think, as I've looked at this piece, and we've looked at it a gazillion times, it feels like, over the last 9 months, 10 months. I think there's opportunities to strengthen this in certain areas. Now, does that have to be done today? No, not necessarily. I think there are pieces that I'm happy the way that they landed. I think there's some teeth in it. Again, not for any particular user. I ran scenarios in my own thing of 10 million a year, 10 million gallons a year users, and 100+ million gallon a year users, just to kind of see, because my goal throughout this entire process is to protect the city, which I know I'm not saying nobody else is, but I'm trying to make sure I point out what I am trying to do here. Protect the city, protect our neighboring communities and whatnot. I think pieces of this I would like to see strengthened over time, if not tonight. I guess my question would be, if we make any significant, or maybe not even significant, whatever that definition is of a material change to this ordinance, would there be anything that would directly conflict with or screw up, for my type of word, the significant user agreement if one were to get approved? Because I know that they're interrelated and interconnected. I'm just trying to think down the road if we need to make changes now, or...
Are you asking if we're boxed in with this?
Right, I don't want to be too boxed in. If we think we need to make reasonable changes based on reasonable information in the future?
It really depends on the change that you're looking to make. It could have an impact on the significant user agreement, but it really is going to depend on the change.
But we have the ability to modify the agreement at any point, correct?
It is an agreement between two parties,
Oh, it is an agreement between two parties. Okay.
so you would have to get the agreement of the other party.
Got it. Okay. So it's a negotiation at that point.
So speaking directly to the ordinance, so just for context, so people don't have to read my brain, my wife would yell at me like, what the hell are you talking about? It's maybe some of like the surcharge fee, could we look at something down the road or consider, because I was looking, if I was a 10 million gallon a year user and I went over by 10%, my surcharge fee would be $700. I mean, that's a nothing to me as a 10 million a gallon a year user, depending on my business or what I'm doing it for. So does it really deter anything? Probably not. I mean, $700 to somebody might make a difference, but, you know, so I would be interested in looking at increasing the surcharge rate for that, you know, overuse number to really try to deter, going over significantly or over the 105% or whatever. I mean, I would be really interested in looking at that. On the flip side, after talking with some smarter folks than me, I'd be interested in looking at if somebody goes under the amount too. Is there a way to reduce their rate, give money back to, you know, on the flip side, encourage maybe less use? And so I'd be, you know, open to considering something like that if there was a way to do that. But that's kind of where my brain went initially. And
On a similar note, this ordinance doesn't lock in any rates, correct?
Correct.
So we have the ability at any point to modify the rates and the rate structure. Okay. All right. Any other discussion or questions? All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Linda, do you want to? Who does the roll call? Who that normally?
The clerk can do it if you want to be very.
I'll do it. I thought it was the clerk that did it, so don't worry about it. Amanda.
Aye. Aye.
do you want my comments before or after I vote?
Before.
Okay, so again, you know, I think this is one that, you know, we've talked about the shortening the time frame of looking at, you know, how we evaluate overuse or not. I understand the cons of that as well of, you know, not being able to maybe. I can see the flaws in that theory. However, we'll have the ability to monitor on a monthly basis as we get the numbers in on a monthly basis. We bill for everything on a monthly basis. So I guess I would encourage us to make sure that we're looking at this and we're going to be evaluating whether or not we put the right structure in place. Again, for any user, nothing specific to any particular one. And I want to just make sure we're not boxing ourselves in, and we can't go back and fix something later on, which it doesn't sound like we'll do, and, you know, assuming it doesn't, you know, contradict or conflict with anything in the
Not to
ordinance.
interrupt, don't vote yet.
Okay,
You can finish your speech, but
okay,
Josh, if I can clarify
yeah,
one thing for you. You can change this ordinance after the fact.
Yeah.
And it would apply to any future significant user agreements thereafter.
right.
Just
Well-
to the extent that it would
Let's
conflict with
interject
the
a question.
existing significant user, any existing, it wouldn't.
I just want to interject a question, and I haven't seen this in the ordinance, but it might be there. Everything that we're looking at potentially passing, is all contingent upon the appropriations permit, correct? That's in writing somewhere?
This is not.
It is, okay. Just want to make sure, because I missed it. All right, go ahead.
This is not.
No,
This
this
part is
ordinance
not.
is not.
This ordinance is not, but everything
Right,
else would be contingent, yeah.
No,
okay.
that isn't, the wetland, permit is grant, would be grant. The conditional use permit is subject to the plat.
Okay. And the subsidy
And the
as well.
plat is subject to the appropriations permit.
And the subsidy as well is tied to it. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, John.
But on the flip side, you know, some of the other things further down, which is the logic in why we put this one first, is we pass this one, if we pass this one, because then the agreement later on that ties back now has the language in here that says it's conditional upon a water appropriation permit being in place and everything. So in order to appropriately do the further one, if we were to have that discussion and vote on that, this has to be in place to have that protection in place, so to speak, for making sure that the water appropriation permit's good.
Correct. The ordinance enables and authorizes the significant user agreement, and then provides the guardrails for compliance associated with it.
And again, we have time to continue to look at this, not that we're gonna open up every ordinance on a regular basis, because that's, I'm sure Jake would love that and Renee would love that. But until we have a significant user agreement, fully signed, and dotted and dated, like with an appropriation permit in hand, you know, any conditionally approved, significant user agreement would still not be, we could still make changes until that's not conditional, correct? Or if it's conditionally approved, it's conditionally approved on this one and no changes to a future ordinance.
Correct, if it's conditionally approved. And technically, it depends on how you approve it. Right now, it's set up so that it is an agreement, it takes effect immediately, but it is subject to the appropriation permit being issued. So any changes to the ordinance would not be able to be applied to the significant user agreement once it's approved, to the extent that it conflicts.
Okay.
You still got to vote.
No, I still will vote. Yes, and I'll vote aye, and we can move on.
Okay. The whole purpose of this, of the significant water agreement, this ordinance, was part of the process is to protect the interests of the city, the residents, everyone around in the community. When we're presented with an opportunity for economic development, there are limitations as to what we can do. We can't pick the user. We can't pick the type of business. All we can do is zone for a particular type of business. And throughout this process, we've been doing our due diligence. Staff has worked their butts off doing their due diligence. And this is an example of something that we came up with in order to help address some of the concerns due to water use. I'm under the understanding we're the only city that Niagara has ever worked with that is requiring a significant water agreement. I think that's kudos to us for taking concerns seriously. With that, I'm happy with how the ordinance is prepared. I think it's acceptable, so I'll vote aye as well. So water uses and service ordinance has passed. So we're on to item B.
Summary ordinance? The summary ordinance, was that was included in the same motion, was it
Yes,
not?
Yes.
273 and 274 were both included.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen. We've, during council discussion, we're unsharing the screen so viewers can view the council discussion. So apologies for a little extra time here. Okay, the next item on the agenda, item 8B, is the resolution 2318 approving notice of decision regarding the wetland replacement plan application for Purple Rain Properties. The map on the screen shows the location of the site. This particular map shows the location of the wetlands that are proposed to be impacted, totaling 0.88 acres. There is a purchase agreement in place to purchase wetland credits out of a wetland bank. The technical evaluation panel has reviewed this application extensively and recommended approval. City Council is being asked to approve Resolution 2318, approving the notice of decision on the wetland replacement plan application and authorizing Bolton and Menk to issue the notice of decision.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2318. Anyone second it?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Josh. Discussion. Does anyone that has this one's fairly straightforward. Does anyone have comments, questions? Okay. We'll do a roll call vote again. Amanda?
You're going to make me go first all night?
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes.
Next item on the agenda, item 8C, is the request for conditional use permit to allow the construction of silos which exceed the maximum height requirement in the I-1 zoning district. As the council is aware, Purple Rain Niagara is proposing to construct a 425,000 square foot manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution facility on proposed Lot 1 of the Interstate 35 Industrial Park. In addition to the building, 3 60-foot silos and 3 65-foot 9-inch silos are proposed to be constructed along the southerly side of the building. The proposed, the zoning for the property is I-1, limited industrial, and the maximum building height is allowed in that district is 50 feet. City code allows for an increase in building height with an approved conditional use permit and identifies specific criteria for granting such a request for increased building height. The Planning Commission has considered the request for granting the conditional use permit, has recommended approval of the conditional use permit. In association with the conditional use permit, included in the packet was a revision to the noise impact study, which was asked to be prepared. Also, screening fencing was requested along the northerly and northeasterly sides of the site in lieu of the strictly chain link fence that was previously provided. And the grading plan has been reevaluated since our last review of the project to see if more screening could be provided along the northerly side of the building. It is, there are no secrets, the building is high. The city engineer worked with the design engineer to provide some recommendations to, that would provide a little more screening. Again, the building will sit higher than the County Road 2 roadway, so there's no question about that. The City Council is being asked to approve Resolution 23-19 granting approval of conditional use permit C1-2022 to allow the additional building height.
Thank you. Any motions? If we'd rather ask questions too before motions, I'm okay with that.
It's got a fun, different process.
Yeah, we're trying something new.
No, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 23-19.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Amanda. So discussion. This is one of the items that there's been some controversy about on a couple different items, or in a couple different areas. Who wants to go first?
I think for me, the Niagara confirmed that there's no lights on top of the silos. I asked a farmer friend who lives over near the site, how tall approximately is a farm silo? And he told me anywhere from 50 to 90 feet. So I don't see this being out of what's already there. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. So, okay, go ahead. Yeah,
Aye.
okay.
Aye.
No, and I'll, agree with what you said, Amanda, talking to a lot of folks too. I mean, this is one of the more no-brainer ones for me, in the sense of, I don't see a good reason to require, not a good reason to not allow a variance like this, where, we would be likely doing this for, a lot of other users, applicants, farms. This one, I can't find things wrong specific to the silo piece. Within the other pieces of this, which isn't necessarily part of this vote, I appreciate the effort and the time that went into looking at the noise, the sound, or same thing, the light, the traffic, those types of deals when it comes to the site plan piece. And I think we're going to see this kind of issue come up with any development that goes over there. And, this is not, this is not the last thing that's going to come, and it may be the first, but it is certainly not going to be the last. And there's nothing inside of me that says we should start denying things like this when we also have city goals and desires to grow and to bring a diversified tax base. And this is one where we're gonna hear it, and I feel it, and I appreciate, and I look at the folks over there, and I know that it's going to impact things. But and I get it, but we're not going to be able to turn down development because of, things like this. And that's where, I fully support this one for sure. So I'll vote aye.
Thank you. I think the developer, Ryan Companies, I think city staff, in Niagara have done the best job they can do with trying to address a lot of the concerns, the noise concerns, the lights concerns. They've put up fencing. They've gone beyond what they typically would have to do. I've been out to several of the properties that are going to be affected. They are going to be affected. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you they're not. There's really not a great way of saying this, but the city is growing. It's going to continue to grow. As Josh pointed out, this is maybe the first project in that industrial park. That industrial park can hold up to 1 million square feet. So there will be more users coming. And so this is the first, and I'm sorry to the property owners, but I can't offer anything more than that. We have to look at what's in the best interest long-term of the city. We've not only listened to residents that are here and that have voiced concerns, but there's plenty of residents that are for this project that I've heard from as well. I've heard from several of them even today. I'm voting to approve. Aye. All right, on to the subsidies.
Okay. I'm going to go through these items fairly quickly. We've presented them before in the past. I'm on a different slide.
Are you saying you want to reopen the water use and service ordinance?
Okay. I'm just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. There we go. The first one we'll talk about is the Minnesota Investment Fund, also commonly referred to as MIF for short. Sorry. So DEED is the one who manages this program. It provides funds to local units of government. The local units of government will then provide those funds to a business on a reimbursement basis. On October 18th, city staff received a MIF application from Niagara Bottling. So here's kind of the layout of how the program works. First, the business obviously must work with the city to complete a MIF application. The submitted application goes to a loan officer. Before that is done, we do need a resolution of support before DEED will go any further with it, so we're still in the beginning steps with this program. As part of the MIF application, Ellers had to complete a financial analysis of the business. Below is a summary of their findings. And Rebecca Kurtz is here today if you have any questions directly about the financial analysis. Niagara requested $405,000 in MIF forgivable loans. The proposed term is 10 years at 0% interest. Funds will be used for machinery and equipment purchases. Purchases are listed as collateral. If Niagara fails to meet any job creation requirement listed in the grant contract, Niagara is subject to proportional decreases in assistance offered. City Council is being asked to first approve resolution number 23-20, authorizing the city to apply to Minnesota DEED for a MIF loan on behalf of Niagara Bottling and authorizing the execution of a related loan document.
Thank you.
Can we have a discussion before
Yep.
we vote on this one?
Sure.
Just to clarify a few things, maybe. So to clarify, this is a DEED-operated grant or fund or whatever you want to call it. the city truly acts as a pass-through / partner to a limited extent in the extent that we have to participate, basically, but that's about it. And deed sets the criteria for the term, the interest rate, all the other things. We do not, as a city, set any of those things. Am I correct in that? And so, by us approving anything, what we're essentially approving is that we support the applicant moving forward with the application, and that we will participate in the process to see if they're eligible to receive the funds. Am I understanding it correctly?
And we would be involved in administering the loan. So we basically, our participation is administering the process.
How does it affect the taxpayers in Elko Market?
Really, the only budget impact would be staff time spent on the reporting portion.
Well, and this is where I would appreciate, we'll have the discussion. Trust us to ask the questions, and that's where I would expect the respect that I have shown to many of you throughout these past few months. So I guess my point is, yes, as a Minnesota taxpayer, we pay taxes in. Deed can then take their funds and operationalize how they see fit. So as a Minnesota taxpayer, absolutely, we pay into that. And you could argue there's a connection to us. However, again, I revert back to deed is controlling these funds, and if not for that, I mean, it's not a city thing, so.
Any other discussions or motions?
Renee wanted to say something.
I was just
Oh.
going to note that the state legislature allocates these funds into these various programs, and they will go to some businesses somewhere that the state tries to attract or retain to Minnesota.
And is this one of the ones that, sorry, is this one of the ones that's contingent on water appropriation, the process moving forward? I mean, do we have to act again, or will there be, I mean, obviously an applicant wouldn't get this if the project isn't moving forward because the water appropriation
That's the
permit
contingency.
doesn't.
That's the contingency. If there's no project, there's
Right.
no.
So then at what point, we would be after appropriation permit stuff is all done, that then we would send the application to deed? Or would it happen now?
If the resolution is approved, the resolution is the last piece of the application D needs before they can start processing it.
Got it. Where are we at? We did this one different.
We just need a motion. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Motion to approve Resolution 2320 and Resolution 2321.
And I'll second that.
So motion by myself, second by Josh. We'll mix it up. Kate?
Aye.
We didn't talk about 23, 21 yet, did we?
No.
Okay,
Oh.
so hold on.
Okay, so before we vote, thank you. You're already on record, sorry.
That's all right.
Any discussion?
Well, same comments, same theory, pass through again. Do you wanted to do a or anything?
You have information on it?
If you
Council,
guys
do we need
feel
a presentation? Does
Yeah.
anybody want a presentation on it?
There's
Amanda?
less involvement with this next program from the city. The city isn't a conduit, but we do need a resolution of support.
Do you have more than this slide?
So same thing, it just lays out the process here, steps that need to be completed. Resolution is the starting point, really, to get the application in the door. So 800,000 in JCF funding. These funds are not given to the local unit of government. Deed will disperse these loans, or these funds directly to Niagara, and the same clawback restrictions are in place. If they fail to meet their job creation goals, they would receive a proportional decrease in assistance.
Do you want more information?
Nope.
All right, we've already gone with Kate. Josh?
So I like to talk. So, I mean, I think this one too, I have a similar view on this one. We as a state, we can get into the debate of whether these jobs are good enough or not good enough or whatever. I think we don't get into those debates when it's convenient, when we are looking for a quick trip, a grocery store, a restaurant that don't pay these types of wages. So I think this type of, this is what our state needs to be doing. And I think, again, this is deed administering, deed approving or not approving. You know, I just saw an article today of how we are losing out to other states in attracting businesses, retaining businesses, and you know, I think this is an opportunity, again, for this particular piece. This one I fully support. So aye.
I'll just vote aye. The resolution passes.
Can I vote?
Oh, fine. Amanda,
Aye.
sorry. See, if I don't go in order, I get mixed up.
I just sat back.
Okay. Business subsidy requests. I'm sorry, we're not taking any more public comment. No. No.
Niagara's business subsidy application to the city was for a reduction in SAC, so sewer access connection and water access connection fees. Niagara is requesting a total SAC reduction just under 140,000 and a total WAC reduction of just under 3 million for a total subsidy not to exceed amount of $3,084,745. The subsidy does not involve any cash outlay from the city. We are not simply writing them a check. The city will simply not collect those fees, but the city will still be collecting fees for a similar use on that size of the
Jake,
property.
can you pause for a second? Can we please be respectful of the city staff and the stuff that they are having to say and present for us?
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
The city still will collect those fees that would be expected for similar sized use. So we're still collecting $81,000 in SAC and over $300,000 in WAC, and these connection fees are one-time fees. So staff's financial analysis of just the gross SAC and WAC connection fee reduction is shown here on this table. We went over this before, so I'll go over it pretty quickly. Basically, when you look at the gross subsidy, it would take just over half a year to recover the sewer portion and 3 1/3 years to recover the water portion. These numbers do not take into consideration additional revenues such as property taxes. If you wanted to take it a step further and look at the net SAC and WAC connection fees in relation to the increased annual sewer and water expenses the city will have to pay for infrastructure, it does increase that payback period, but sewer is still under 1 year to recover those costs, and water, it would just be 3.65 years until those costs are recovered. Here's another graph illustrating our water fund is that blue line, so it's steadily increasing with no significant industrial user. The one on the right is with a significant industrial user similar to Niagara, and you can see the steep increase in fund balance. Sewer, not as steep, obviously they're not using as much sewer, but it is still a sharper increase.
And that increase in projected revenues, of course, doesn't take into account other unknown expenses in the future. Those increase in reserves provide capacity to respond to negative circumstances that might affect the health of the funds, and also give the city greater capacity to be able to work with the water and sewer rates for our residents as well.
The city's business subsidy policy states that the policy shall be used as a guide in processing and reviewing applications. The city shall have the option of amending or waiving sections of this policy when determined necessary or appropriate. Due to the scale of development and associated benefits to local employment, tax base, and utility funds, staff's opinion is that it may be appropriate for the city to waive sections of the subsidy in this situation. So staff's reasoning behind that, it goes back to city council priority goals. One of the goals would be to advance shovel-ready status of industrial sites. This will do that in staff's opinion by serving as a catalyst for the Park I-35 industrial park. The project will diversify the city's tax base. The project would create 59 local employment opportunities. The project would be a catalyst for additional business opportunities as well. Some of these are a little redundant, but in the EDA economic development plan, the objectives covered. The project would increase tax base, estimated at almost $200,000 a year for the city, $1.25 million overall for the school district county. The project would diversify tax revenue, and the project would provide local employment opportunities. It would provide a significant financial benefit to the city's sewer and water utility funds. And the project would also provide daytime employment, which helps additional businesses, improving the availability of goods and services to residents. Title IX of the city code, as amended per ordinance number 273. Oh, sorry, I went too far.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Any questions?
I'm curious what you're about to get into, though.
It's up next.
Thank you. Yeah, let's start with questions first, I guess, before motions. Does anyone have questions or comments?
I do have a question. So Ellers did the financial on Niagara. Can they not make this development happen without us giving them this sack and whack?
The financial analysis that Ellers worked on with Niagara was related very specifically to the MIF application and their ability to be a feasible company. For this, my understanding was it was part of the initial discussions and offer when Niagara approached the city about the site.
Yes, it was,
No analysis was done
Correct.
on the city piece.
this is not a gap-filling subsidy, it is a incentive.
Section 8, criteria.
Any other questions or comments?
You know what I'm talking about.
Go ahead.
Or motions?
No, if you have questions, comments.
I'll call for a motion.
Well, I mean, this is the one I struggle with the most.
Let's get it on the table, and then, and then we'll have discussion. What is this, 2322? I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2322. Any seconds before we discuss? If there's no seconds, the item fails.
I'll make a second so we can have a discussion.
Okay. Motion by myself, second by Josh. So let's talk.
Yeah, no, I mean, so like I was saying, this is the one I struggle with.
Please. Thank you.
I have struggled with the most, I think. And part of my struggle is both with the, it's the,
Please,
it's
thank you.
the policy, that we have in place. It's the theory, the philosophy behind waiving everything. I just hate it. I hate just the feeling of, why do we have a policy? Why do we have an application? Why do we say certain things? And then we waive them. Now, I take all of that, and I said it here for a second, and know that, rewind 10 months ago, 12 months ago, whatever, years ago, we've talked about attracting businesses to the industrial park, to developers, and so clear direction has always been provided to staff to go after, to work with Ryan, to do what we need to do to bring in opportunities for our city to grow. Had this been a non-high water user, and I've said this to so many folks, we'd have been already taking pictures. I'd have been shoveling the damn plot right now. I mean, we would have been moving forward had we not had some of these, sorry, I forgot there's a kiddo in the front. If I didn't have some of the questions I had related to the water side of this. Now, knowing too that, I want us as a city, and we've spent some time over the last handful of years, at least since I've been on council, we've been on council, to really try to work on our reputation, the way we work with developers, the way we work with our partners. And that's the piece that's been holding me in this entire time of, otherwise I would have just said, nah, forget it. I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, they don't need this. It's 2% on the total cost of putting it in there. And I could make that argument every day. I really could, and I could sit. But then the other side of it says, you know, I approved, I supported us saying, go after developers, go after opportunities, go after applicants to come here. And this was one of the things we put on the table as an incentive, which many other communities, cities, others do on a regular basis. So that's the side of me that says, I don't want to be that person that pulls back something, even though now, 10 months later or whatever, I wouldn't make the same decision again. I quite honestly would not. I would put other things in place. You know, I've thrown out all right, let's reduce it by the cost of how much it takes to do the aquifer testing. It's gonna cost us $100,000 to do the aquifer testing that we're now required to do, that I could argue is because of the user. I know the department is saying that it's because of the amount and whatever, but I think I would then push back and argue it's because we asked for that amount because we have a significant user coming in. Otherwise, we wouldn't have asked for 365 million gallons, and therefore we probably would not have had an aquifer test requirement. So, I mean, if there was a way for, I've thought about ways to push back, negotiate, think through what would make sense. If we could figure out ways to reduce this a bit without disrupting things, that's what I would have loved to see. I think the protections that I'm worried about, or the water things that I'm worried about, well interference that was brought up, what could that cost do to a city with a budget of $3 million or whatever we have, could be significant. And I think I want everybody to know that this is like a risk that we as a city are taking with so many pieces to play here. I'll shut up in a second. But this is truly conditional on the water appropriation permit. Can we do something to strengthen that a bit, can it be conditional upon the water appropriation permit as completely written with no conditions coming back, no additional costs being required,
As applied for.
as applied for, because I don't want we get the water appropriation permit, potentially the DNR approves it after we do all the testing, all the analysis, all the review, and not we, the DNR. The DNR does all of that. They say, nope, you're good to go, but you can only get a water appropriation permit of $275 million. Or there's some conditions put on it, or they require some additional monitoring that costs the city additional money to do. That's where, could we say, if that happens, let's reopen this back up, or find a way to work with, the applicant. If we have to do that, I would love some flexibility there, because this is the piece that is truly getting me, and I want to be a good business partner. However, I want to protect my city and our community and those around us. No, shut up, sorry.
I think the difficulty with that is that, what if it's $50,000 that's gonna cost the city versus $200,000? I mean, is there some amount? Right now, you have no idea what that amount will be. So it leaves it really wide open. If you say, if there's you're going to go back, this is conditioned upon no payments that the city has to make in connection with the DNR water appropriation permit. I highly suspect that there will be some costs associated with that. What that would be, we don't know. So that wipes it clean, and where will you be at then 6 months from now, 8 months from now on this subsidy?
I'd also like to add that all the documents as currently drafted, including the significant user agreement, are set up with these numbers in place.
Correct.
Any testing, aquifer testing, we consider them to be system costs. They're costs borne to the system, not to the user. The significant user agreement, as it's currently drafted, specifically identifies the connection fees that Niagara has to pay, and the usage fees that they have to pay, and all other system-related costs are the responsibility of the city under the current agreement. We do consider those types of costs to be system costs. The $315,000 connection fee they would pay would help offset things such as that. And the significant revenue, as you saw in the graph, that would be received from Niagara would also help offset costs if required.
Long and short, the boost to property taxes would basically pay for, in the first year, pay for the testing.
Yeah,
Right.
they're plus or minus 200,000 based on estimates from the county. They could be as high as 220, 100. They gave us a range, but 200 is right in the middle of the range. It will probably end up being higher.
Yeah, and the testing costs, the property taxes within the total city finances would actually be out of the water fund. And as you saw from our previous analysis, the return on the subsidy is very short. And so we're not looking at a risk to the finances of the utility fund from this user. But for having a user with that type of volume that they're purchasing, we wouldn't have the benefit, the other financial benefits to the fund.
Okay.
Maybe a more technical question, I think. So are these fees set by the Met Council?
No.
The sack and whack fee, total cost?
Actually, these are we set these fees based on their water usage.
So will
Met
this,
Council, because they only deal with sewer, and usually they're equal, usually what's coming in is going out, but in this particular case, they're vastly different. So we as the city set what we thought their connection fees should be based on the volume of 425,000 gallons per day divided by 274 gallons per day per house equals 1,551 households.
And that 274 does come from the Met
That
Council.
comes from the Met Council.
Yep.
That's it.
so if any portion of these fees are waived, we don't have to write a check to the Met Council?
No.
That is correct.
Their full fees will be collected and passed through to them. We don't have a choice about that.
And how much would those be? Because maybe I'm just stupid and haven't heard that number.
I think it's in the $400,000 range. I might
So basically, nothing,
be,
in the grand scheme of things,
Relative to the.
relative to this scope of what we're talking about here.
I'll probably
So we'll
like to
collect
verify that,
that
but
with the reduced sack and whack fees. There will be no cost to the city. Like, we're not writing a check, essentially, that we're waiting to make up out of whatever. So just for clarification.
Yeah, the Met Council fee is a separate fee from the SAC and WAC fees. There's actually an MCES fee, which is collected on the sewer side, and that is a straight pass-through, and we charge them whatever, and the determination of the number of units, or the determination of that charge, and it's a little bit different for industrial users, on how they do that process. That's determined by the Met Council. And for our piece of it, it's simply a pass-through charge, and that is separate from the subsidy that we're talking about here.
going to correct, the minimum that they have to pay and pass through is $299,840. So we'll collect that, and then in addition, I think they'll pay monthly fees, but that's kind of between them and Met Council, between Niagara and Met Council.
So I learned something today. You know, the whack fees, I always thought were set by somebody else. So, ignorance on me. So that's, I mean, that makes me feel better. And, yeah. Are we voting yet? I can't remember what we have
We haven't,
here.
there hasn't been a motion.
Yeah,
yet.
we did.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
motioned.
yeah.
Oh, I
seconded.
made the motion,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Well, we haven't called for a vote. Is there any other questions before we call for a vote?
Are there conditions on this one, like there are conditions on the job creation fund and the other one, the MIF?
Yeah, they're still subject to clawback restrictions.
And Yes. Can you just elaborate maybe a little bit more for the general public or those of us that are brain foggy right now?
You open up the agreement, and actually, I wonder if Grant would better answer this.
Could you repeat your question, please?
What was my question?
I think it was what are the
Oh, yeah, conditions on
conditions on this?
this one. Lord.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is Grant Turpin, Dorsey and Whitney. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I can answer that question. So the clawback provisions relate to the job creation goals that are under this business subsidy agreement. And in simplest terms, the clawback provision says the number of jobs you do not create, the city is going to claw back that proportion of the amount that was provided. So for example, if the job creation goal was 60 jobs and they only create 30 jobs, they're going to have to repay half of this assistance with whatever funds that they have, including interest.
And remind me, because I do remember, the time frame for those jobs, was it 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years from what we call the benefit date, and so that would be the date whenever the second whack charges are reduced, for lack of a better term.
And then on the back end, it was 4 or 5 years. They have to stay in business, can't request a move or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't go backwards.
That's correct.
Taken right out of statute.
Questions? All right, I'll call for, you guys ready to vote? Well, I'll call for a vote, and I'll start. I'll call on myself first. This is something I've struggled with as well, for a lot of the reasons Josh pointed out. There's a lot of different moving parts with this development. The biggest concern, and this isn't directly related to the connection fees, but biggest concern is the environmental impact. We as a city don't have a ton of discretion when it comes to the environmental stuff. And I've had the position from the beginning, and I have the position now. City council meetings are not the place to advocate for climate change, for any environmental policies. That's not our jobs. Our jobs are to look at each application as it comes in and make the right business decision in the best interest of the city. We are gonna be, for the subsidy piece alone, we're gonna be repaid within 3.5 years approximately. At that point, approximately 2025, we can start making some meaningful adjustments to water bills, and we can save residents a lot of money. With the property tax revenue, that's gonna allow us to hire more police officers. That's gonna allow us to do just more as a city, invest more in parks. And this has been in the works for decades. This is from citizens that have contacted us, not necessarily Niagara, but development in general. We've had people work on, well, we've just had people working for decades on economic development involving citizens and stakeholders within the city. With that, I'm gonna vote to approve. I think it's the best business decision for the city. I think it's best in the long term of the city, and that's my position. Josh?
And I'll go back to the fact that this is the one I hate the most out of all of these decisions, and mostly because the process has sucked, in my opinion, and it's something that I will go into with eyes wide open moving forward. If we're gonna do it as an incentive, let's call it an incentive. Let's not apply our business subsidy policy. Let's work through how we can figure out a different process, policy, way to go through this without saying we're just gonna waive a bunch of stuff to allow for it. And I get why we're waiving a bunch of stuff, and I get why we're trying to incentivize it, but I just hate the fact that we're trying to fit this into something that just doesn't seem, and I know we have to, there's the statutes that call for it, and then we have to click off all those little boxes, those 7, 8 subparts of the statute, and we have to have an application that has all those components and whatnot. But I would just say, I mean, moving forward, my eyes are wide open, so when we think through this, I was more naive and ignorant than I am now back then. I am less naive and ignorant moving forward. And, you know, for future folks coming in, it's just, I want to look at it differently, do it differently. I'll ask different questions. I will, whatever, because I didn't do that back in the day, or last year. And that's on me, and I own that piece of it. But, you know, with the fact that this is conditional on the water appropriation permit, the aquifer testing, all of that piece has to check the boxes. If there's any concerns related to that, you know, I'll go up against whoever I need to go up against. If we have concerns about environmental stuff that the aquifer testing shows, and we'll deal with that. You know, I think knowing or learning a little bit more today about the WAC fees and whatever, and what the Met Council's actually gonna charge for this, that we're not fronting any funding whatsoever, because I was even under the impression that we were gonna be fronting some of this, and we would take the 3.65 years and 0.91 years to make up for that. You know, so that makes me feel better about it. I don't know. This one just sticks in my craw. And I know it. I know I gotta live with these decisions that I make no matter what, and I got folks that, and I don't know what the right decision is on this one, and is there a time limit that it automatically gets approval if I don't do it, like a time limit on everything else? And we reduce this, or offer even to reduce it, then that opens up the whole blah.
The significant user agreement and the business subsidy are tied together at this point.
What are you gonna vote, Kate? You can't tell me, I know.
Table it, yeah.
I wish we could move on, but
I know,
I gotta
I
sit
know.
on you.
I know, that's fine. I'll own it. I go back to, talking it out loud, sorry, you guys gotta bear with me, you're gonna deal with it, I'm sorry. If there wasn't, I get out of my own head, if this was another user that wasn't a high water user, if this was Amazon, other places that have applied in the past, that we've made similar things, incentives to in the past, that probably had similar financials in the past, organizations that I've worked for in the past, for-profit companies that have asked for, it's the smart business decision. God, taking the emotion out of it.
I'm waiting for your wife to text you.
I know, she probably already has, that's why I have my phone down. No, I'll vote aye.
Okay. Kate?
This is definitely, I agree with you guys, this is probably one of the toughest, hardest ones to swallow. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna vote nay.
Maybe I should have gone first. I just want to say I appreciate that Josh is the one that likes to think out loud because I don't think out loud well. I like to mull things over internally, but I share a lot of the thoughts that Josh has had tonight. And I agree. I think that we've all learned a lot from where we started to where we are now. But I also feel like if I am, I don't know the way to put it. I don't know that I really need to give a speech. I feel like
You don't have
this
to.
is the part that, no, it is not. This is the part I don't like, is talking. For me, I think that we, as a city, need to incentivize to get people to come here, and so I'm voting aye.
These are billionaires.
Passes. Thank you. All right, next item, significant user agreement.
All right, I need to reshare a presentation, just a moment. Okay, as the city council did vote to adopt draft, or the ordinance 273, 274, amending Title IX of the city code, a significant user would be required, a significant user agreement would be required for the proposed Niagara bottling facility. City attorney has prepared a draft agreement which addresses Niagara's water volume needs for current phase 1, identifies a potential for phase 2, identifies the city's water system capacity to serve phase 1. The city's ability to provide water for phase 1 is contingent upon the DNR's approval of a water appropriation permit increase request. The agreement will need to be amended to serve any future phases for the project. The requirement for the water use to be metered. The agreement outlines water rates and fees, Niagara's sanitary sewer needs for phase 1 and potential phase 2, the city's sanitary sewer system capacity to serve phase 1, the requirements for sanitary sewer effluent to be metered separately, and sewer rates and fees. And this agreement also contains provisions if the significant user should breach the contract, and outlines procedures for, as well as the ordinance for emergency water use and reduction in their water service. The City Council is being asked to approve the significant user agreement with Niagara Bottling, which defines the water supply, sewer discharge capacity, the relationship, the infrastructure, and services provided. The agreement has been reviewed, drafted by the city attorney, and executed by Niagara.
Thank you. Council, do we want to put a motion on the table before discussing, or do we just want to discuss first? How do you guys want to proceed?
I'm gonna go throw up. No. I like having the discussion.
Yeah,
I
we can do
personally
that.
like that process better, and
Okay.
we can give our little spiel if we want to. You know, I obviously had more questions, things that I think, well, I for sure will be looking at as we move forward here, and making sure that the ordinance is as protective and comprehensive as I think it could be better done moving forward, less in this agreement. I think under Section 1, Part C, I mean, I like that piece where you know, talking with a local farmer here, we were going through the what if they don't use a certain amount, what if they, you know, project way too high just to pick a random number, so that they don't ever go over that amount. You know, because I have concerns in the future for these types of agreements with this ordinance that, you know, if I'm a business, I'm gonna pick an inflated number so that I never go over that number, and then I never have a material breach, and I never get over that 105%, I never pay 150% surcharge. So I like how this part adjusts it or looks to adjust it based on actual usage. And I think that's something I'd like to consider looking at further as we get down the road here of just making sure that we have those right components in place, so we don't see, not that I think we're gonna see a bunch of significant users, but if just wanting to strengthen that a bit, or at least talk through it again in the future. But I do like that part, having some of that language in there. I do like the flexibility in all of this piece where it's at the city's discretion. If there's an emergency that we define in reasonable terms and Andrea gives a blessing, you know, we have the authority and the teeth and the ability to take action and comply with, you know, the water supply plan, which I think we did a good job of going through and updating. I guess with one question is with the, you know, future potential costs, or it's on page 3. It's section 2, part C. And I'm not looking to amend anything. I just want to clarify some things. And it says the city agrees that it will take commercially reasonable steps to acquire the withdrawal permits upon notice from the customer of its desire to increase capacity. Now, we're still, in this particular case, for this specific agreement, we're talking phase 1 and phase 2. That's it, right? We're not looking at phase 45. Right, okay, so this is just phase 1. If there's a phase 2, there'll be another agreement or amendment to this agreement that we will then review, make sure we have the capacity, the water appropriation permit, blah, blah, blah. If there are, something that I would like us to consider, and maybe this should have been done in the ordinance, and whatever, we can't now, but for future water appropriation permits, if we were to need to increase it for a hypothetical phase 2, if there's another aquifer test that the DNR gets on this thing where they say, hey, now you're gonna do aquifer tests for every increase or every whatever, can we put something in here to allow, that's just part of, that's not a cost to the city if it's specific to a user, specific to an agreement, that we could pass those costs on so that they bear the burden of it, not the city.
That would be something to negotiate in some future agreement,
Okay.
and a philosophy adopted by the city based on the circumstances then.
Could look at it, so let's say a hypothetical user comes in and they're gonna use 100 million gallons and we're looking for a 300 million gallon increase. You could look at assigning proportional costs and with that user at that time through negotiation.
So that is something that I would very much like to look at as we move forward, so we can have that established and in place and firmed up and whatever before or if there's a request for another permit or an amendment or anything like that.
Sure, so I think the council is aware, but just kind of taking off your last comment, our current appropriation permit increase request is essentially 1/3 of the request is for city capacity and 2/3 of the request is for capacity for Niagara.
Oh, while I'm going, sorry. No, and I appreciate you keeping us on task, so I'm really trying. One thing I didn't talk about in the ordinance, and it kind of ties to this, and something that I want to be as transparent and open and honest about as well, too. I mean, I think I didn't say it, so that's on me. With the ordinance and with these types of things, you know, I don't want to see amendments constantly asking for, you know, an extra 10 million, an extra 25 million, an extra whatever million. If I'm only a 10 million a year user, I don't want to continuously request amendments to come into compliance. I hate that piece of the way we wrote the ordinance of, if they're out of compliance, they either have to develop, it doesn't even say implement, develop a corrective action plan. I would like to see something where they actually have to implement it within a certain period of time, not just create it. And then also, I would love to remove at some point, or at least talk about what that would look like, could look like, of you can't just request an amendment to get into compliance. That to me seems like a joke. And so, just for everybody to hear that piece, I mean, I think that's one thing that I would like to look at moving forward, because I think we could do something different there, so.
All right, any other questions or comments or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 23-20, nope, that was the old one. I'll make a motion to approve the significant user agreement with Niagara Bottling.
Motion by Josh, I'll second it. Any further discussion before we call for a vote? All right, Amanda,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh?
Well, so since it's my turn to talk again, no, I mean, I think, I appreciate, you guys laugh, but I mean, I do,
No, I appreciate you delving into this, and I appreciate you thinking out loud. It's helpful for all of us that internalize our stuff.
well, no, I mean, this is been a process, that I hope some can see and feel that I'm not taking lightly. I have no reason to believe any of my other council members are taking any of this lightly. And I believe in the process. I believe that, we have done so many things right. We've certainly done some things that I would do differently in the past. I am very happy to see Dr. Jennings be able to work with the city on the development of the water aquifer testing process. I will be very diligent on making sure that the city has no part in the analysis of and/or review of or taking that and providing any direction. That's the department's job, and they need to do it. Now, I know we have to do certain pieces of it. We do the testing, we give them the data. That's their job. Now, we can hold them accountable to that. I think this has been a process. I've gotten to know so many of you, and I appreciate the time that folks have taken. I hope the feeling is somewhat mutual. You're gonna walk out of here and be like, what the hell? And I get it. And it's not, it's certainly not because I wasn't listening, these folks weren't listening. I really think the process has played out and will continue to play out the way that it needs to, or the way that it will, and we can't even predict what's gonna happen and the good that could come out of some of this. And all of this could go to crap. If the water appropriation permit comes back, the aquifer testing shows some issues, then you know what? That opens the door to further discussion and further evaluation of whether this is the right decision, and we'll have to figure out how we go from there. But, sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't know if you were gonna give me any more time to talk, so
You need more time?
I'll vote aye on this one as well.
I can't repeat anything that hasn't already been said and add anything to it, but I'll try. Echo what Josh has said. I've gotten to know a number of you. I fully expect that a lot of you are going to walk out of here angry, and I understand that. And for months, we've been hearing, oh, there's money under the table, or city staff has been pushing this, or that can't be further from the truth. This is how the process works. This is the first time we've done this in Elko New Market, and it feels weird. It feels uncomfortable. We have legitimate concerns about our city. There's legitimate concerns about the environment. Looking out for wells is a big concern of mine as well. That said, this is, I think it's roughly 18, what Niagara will be using is roughly 18% of what Jenny-O Turkey uses in Faribault. The amount of water that Elko New Market uses, assuming the water appropriations permit goes through, is a small fraction of what Lakeville has. We are not making a dent in the aquifer with this. And with that, I vote to approve. I vote aye. All right. Thank you, everybody. On to reports. Administration.
I don't have anything specific to report unless council has any questions for me.
Okay. Anyone? Everyone.
We're still having our meeting.
Public Works had a report in the packet. I'm guessing there's nothing else to add.
Corey didn't have anything in addition to the written report.
Brady, I always enjoy seeing pictures of you with the kids. You look like you're having more fun than them.
I am, that is true. Unless you have any questions, that'll be all.
Okay. Engineering?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Community development?
Yes, we do have a report. So, 26782 Meadow Ridge Drive encroachment agreement discussion. The property owner is in attendance tonight in case you have any questions for him. I'll just give a brief background.
Why don't you wait a little bit? We'll wait a minute for those that want to clear out.
Okay.
Be easier to hear. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so brief background, the packets, or the memos in the packet. During an unrelated code enforcement sweep by staff noticed there was a recently constructed fence and shed, what looked like to be encroaching on city property. Staff had not recalled issuing that permit either. So staff did do a search in the records for a fence or a shed permit for the property. We were unable to discover any associated permits, which led staff to just send a letter to the property owner notifying them that the fence and shed must be relocated if they are on city property and that a permit and encroachment agreement are still required to be applied for. So after the letter was received, the owner did comply and he's willing to submit everything for a permit and encroachment agreement. And he is still requesting that the city council allow him to leave his fence and shed in place on city property. So we're just having a discussion to see if anyone would be open to that idea, and if so, we would have to draft a separate agreement. It would be a little more complicated than our typical encroachment agreements.
So what it boils down to is, do we allow them to not move the fence, right?
So staff's main concern is if it is approved and we allow the fence and shed to stay in place, it sets a precedence.
Yep.
Obviously, everyone would be willing or wanting to do that with their yards as well. So staff's recommendation based on not just community development staff, we consulted the city attorney, and our recommendation would be to have the property owner remove any and all improvements located on city property and deny any encroachment agreement into city-owned property.
Council? Are you the property owner? Sure.
Thanks for sticking around.
This is for my kid, not me. So, mistakes happen, sometimes for the best intentions and sometimes not. And thus, the law turns out to be biased and unjust, which I remind you is not supposed to be. Not a single person is above the law, not even the president. However, that appears to be arguable today. Law is supposed to be just and in fairness equal. Or rather, that's the idea and principle behind it. People make mistakes. For example, the mistake with my house is that my house, according to Scott County, is taxed as a 4-bedroom house. It's actually a 5-bedroom. It was also listed as a 5-bedroom on GIS.gov, as a 4-bedroom. I don't know how this happened, but a mistake was made probably during the development stage back in 2003. Listing and taxing this house properly will only help sell, if I decide to in the future, and gives me more equity and gives the city more taxes. There's absolutely no downside to granting me this 1,024 square foot variance. Another mistake made by law is arguably Roe v. Wade was passed and or overturned I'm just making a point. Other laws that were overturned based on unfairness or pushed through are multiple gun right laws, bankruptcy laws, tax laws, educational laws, and so on. All probably made with well-intentioned arguments, however, they were overturned. The government makes mistakes regularly, and that's okay. We're human. Developmental plans are human. Housing plans are human. Property lines are human. Surveyor boundaries are all done by humans, and humans make mistakes. A simple 4 can turn into a 7 on your keypad, and if not checked, is wrong. I've made mistakes before in my life, and in my prior profession one time, it almost cost that person's life. My mistake that I made brought me here today was moving a flag marker extended my property line because I could not believe that it was that particular shape for what appeared to be no apparent reason at all. And I showed other people, and they agreed that this is, or must have been, a mistake because it is such an unusual way. My next mistake was not asking for a variance at first. Because frankly, when I asked my neighbors, asked a simple deaf and autistic sign to be put up, it was an argument and a fight. And I did that so they could slow down for him. He's Down syndrome and he's deaf and can't hear. Getting that done was a fight in and of itself. So with my prior profession in government and the simple sign that was almost denied, I skipped this step to come and ask you guys for variance. I didn't ask for a variance for my property because of those things. I broke ordinance, law, and well, with my head in my hand, I apologize for doing that. I took the wrong advice, and now I'm here trying to do what's right. I rushed through this just like the overturned laws did. Albeit with good intentions, I put up a safety barrier to keep my son and my dog safe. My stepson, Connor, obviously has Down syndrome, but most importantly, he's deaf. Imagine being 12 years old and you can't read or write or swim or even go to the bathroom on your own. Statistically, I'll bet that $50, none of you have a special needs kid. And if I lose, I'll spend another $100,000 so he's not deaf either. And I'll win that one. Connor's not just Down syndrome special needs case, he's an extra special needs case that our family's obligated to conform to. I don't have a choice. We need special attention towards Connor, and there's no way around it. Locks on top of doors with alarms so he doesn't leave without us knowing. Special $1,000 fire alarms put on beds. Pulling your driveway backwards, because if you go past the driveway first, you can see if he's out there in the driveway, because he's not going to move. Multiple cars have had to stop before him and actually take him by the hand and move him out of the street. He won't move. I have to take him to special school 30 miles away, one way. I have to cook him special food. I've gotten pretty good at it. He had once tried to help a dog, our dog, go outside in February. It was -5 degrees. He was doing everything right. However, he was outside for about 5 minutes too long and realized that he's outside in -5-degree weather with a t-shirt and shorts on. He was crying and didn't even understand that he had to come back inside. We also have to remind him every 2 hours to go to the bathroom because he doesn't get it. He can't swim either. There's a pond behind my house. Connor is going to need special lifelong care by us, meaning he cannot put into a group home. I'll have to build a special one-room apartment on our property that this city said that they would allow, but I can't do that because as of right now, with the way the property lines are drawn, I won't have room to do that for him. Remember, you are not giving me special attention for this fence. You are giving my stepson special attention because he needs it for his safety and well-being. I said it once, I'll say it again. I admit I went about this the wrong way, and I apologize. If you take this fence away, you're taking away Connor's ability to thrive in an area where it's safe to play. Me building a special house for him later on, because we're going to have to do it until he's dead. And it only increases the property value for me, for you, the equity and selling points in the future. I see that you make amendments to try and get this Niagara bottling plant through. Can I please have the variance for a small piece of land that's only 1,000 square feet? It sounds like you're willing to circumvent your own policy. Please have my variance.
Can I ask a question? So the issue, I mean, one solution to this is relocating the fence. And that seems like it would solve the problem, right? Or can you explain why it wouldn't solve the problem, moving the fence?
For the purpose of, like it just mentioned, we won't be able to allocate him to go to group home or assisted living. My wife and I have already talked about that. His father and my wife and I have already talked about that. He won't be able to go into group home or assisted living. If you guys, when my wife and I, actually part of our reason why we moved into this city is because you guys allowed, Renee was talking about it once.
Accessory dwelling units.
A what?
Accessory dwelling units.
That we'd be able to do that. We can't if the fence is moved. Not even a 20 by 20 shed. If the fence is moved, I can't build.
I see. You can't, moving the fence won't allow you the ability to do the ADU.
Well, actually not. I think we're mixing.
Well, I'm just asking his opinion. We'll come back and discuss more, but.
That's one of the reasons why I'd like to keep the fence there, yes.
Got it, okay. Council, does anyone else have any questions for this gentleman? I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. My name is Jason Wolf.
Thanks, Jason.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add one thing. How Mr. Wolf was talking about the irregular lot lines in his backyard, so it might be a question Rich can help answer, but
I don't want to get into the staff opinion at this point.
Okay.
I just want to have a discussion with the council members. Because what we're really looking at is are we open to having this discussion? Because we're not passing any amendments, we're not, correct? We're not passing anything to allow the coach. There's no action tonight, so, you know, at this point, really, we're just having a conversation about whether this is something we're open to doing or not, so.
Open to consider.
Open to consider, right. And if so, it would be placed on a future agenda. So, I'm not doing a roll call, I just want people to talk.
The safety of Connor, I think, is more important than the property lines.
Yeah. Yep,
I would agree with that.
Josh?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and I think, you know, for tonight, what we're doing is saying, yes, give direction back to staff to look at, am I under the right impression? Like, that's the direction we're giving. We're not taking action on
To look at and bring back.
amending anything, saying, waiving anything, doing a variance to anything, because I have questions about maybe there's a variance we can do to the ADU regulation to allow for if the fence were to be moved, maybe that's an option that we would want to consider.
So you're
I'm open to a
talking-
discussion, for
Yeah,
sure.
I am too.
Yeah.
So, at this point, all we can really say is that we're open to putting it on an agenda and having this discussion about it. So, it's not something that we would grant necessarily today at this part of the meeting, but, yeah, we're not shutting it down. We're happy to have the conversation and look into it further.
Point that Jake stated that a variance in the beginning may not have been allowed, because if you allow me one, then you have to allow everyone. That's a very valid concern. I see your point, and it's a viable concern. You let me, you have to let everyone. I'm not going to complain without a solution. The only logical case for not allowing the fence is that you have to allow everyone. Then if it is no, I appreciate Linda and Amanda, but if overall, if it is no, let me just say that if you're willing to do an amendment to a policy or bring policy to allow Niagara, I'm willing to write a policy, which I drafted, to present to you guys in order to allow a case because of special needs, extenuating circumstance that prevents foreseeable great bodily harm or death for the family of the property. It's as simple as that.
I'm sure staff will let you know when it's on the agenda, and then, assuming it's not a Niagara meeting again, where it's a little less formal, I'll more than happy to have you talk at that meeting as well, so, thank you. Anything for parks to relay?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. CCEC?
Fire Rescue Days is coming up on the 24th, and shout out to Jody and all the work she's doing marketing that day. We'll have some food trucks and activities in the park after the parade, and then we could use some more parade participants if anybody has any.
What are we at?
23.
What are we normally at?
Last year we had
50?
50?
around 50, yeah, it was
Yeah,
a little
so
shy of 50.
Okay, yeah.
call your friends, make some plugs on our great city so that we can have a fabulous parade. That's all I got.
All right. Other board reports, I was at Scale Exact and I got the minutes. I sent them to Tom late today and asked him to forward them on to you folks.
It'll be tomorrow,
Yeah, that's,
or actually Monday, so.
yeah, that's fine. The actual Scale meeting is tomorrow. I'm not gonna be able to attend in person, but I'll be online for it. It's Representative Angie Craig, who will also be zooming in as well, so, giving a legislative update, so, I don't know, it might be an interesting one to tune into if you have the chance, so. And if you don't have a link, or if you want the link, let me know. That's, I'm assuming no service delivery either. Oh, you do have a service delivery?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did not, did not attend the last meeting.
Okay. And there wasn't I-35, right?
There was. So this is the last one before we have a 2-month break. So we have July and August off. So then the next one is like September 14th, maybe, because it's the second Thursday. So today, Ryan Wilson was there from MnDOT presenting on the I-35 survey / feedback that they had requested or were looking at for how to do the improvements up and down 35 all the way past like Cliff, past the split and all the way down. So they ran through the analysis. I saw that they just sent out the PowerPoint, so I'll forward that on to Tom to pass along to everybody. It was super interesting. You know, Commissioner Wolf and I got a few parting shots in there too of this is the prep work for the new bridge that's coming down. Slide 8 had 8 projected bridges in there. Asked if he forgot or deleted our slide about when he went on to. So he kind of got the point that we're still going to ride him on that, and I think that they're having some discussion. There's a Zach dude over in the side too. I don't know if he's with MnDOT as well, or I don't know. But anyway, so good discussion. As I think they had over 2,000 responses to the survey, so it was a good turnout, I guess, comparative to other surveys. They're looking at, if I had to bet, it would be adding for sure, I think is a no-brainer, adding an express lane from all the way down to 550, down to that piece. They had talked about maybe going down to 185th, County Road 60 there to just fill in that gap. But they're gonna look at all different types of options. But when that starts happening, it's gonna be a crap show, so work from home and or whatever, because I can't imagine the mess that's gonna be going north and south, but.
Well, looking forward to that. Thanks, Josh.
It'll be fun, yeah.
Discussion by council.
Question, do we, I know that the applicant or application is open. I saw the newsletter in the mail today. Have we gotten anybody yet? I'm just curious. Are they flooding in with applications?
No.
All right.
And when's the posting out until? 30th, okay. Well, I mean, before we adjourn, I just want to address everyone. We're the city of Elko New Market. We're the city council and city government, and we work as a team. And I am just very proud of every single one of you. This is a brand new experience, this Niagara development. It's something that I'm proud of city staff for bringing in Niagara. I'm excited to have Niagara be a part of our community. But we've never faced anything like this. I mean, the amount of public discord is something new to all of us. And I think everyone's handled themselves with grace. And I just want to say I'm really proud of everybody in this room. So, thank you. With that, if anyone has any motions to adjourn, we can do that.
Let's just stay here.
You want to just
Hang
hang
out for a
out?
bit, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Amanda.
Second.
Second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.